It's Matt Chapman, and I'm here with Ricardo Suktio, formerly of Nordia, and Ricardo is in Stockholm, Sweden. Good morning, Ricardo.
Good morning, Matt. And I think you're calling from New Zealand, right?
I am the other side of the world, and it's just coming into evening here. Well,
Wonderful.
Ricardo, you're you're moving on from Nordia, where you've been the head of people for the wholesale bank. It must have been an interesting last few months for you, and you've also been in a fascinating country, which has been getting a lot of attention as well.
Yeah, indeed. Sweden has taken a different approach than most of the other countries in terms of the strict lockdown, which I think living here has been very helpful and very good to sort of weather and get through this period. So life has been able to continue at a relatively normal way, but people have been, taking the necessary precautions, in terms of social distancing, especially.
And so, for you, did the offices close down, or did it end up a hybrid situation?
It was a hybrid situation. The offices didn't close down, but people could work from home virtually. And within Nordea, they have a very good virtual setup. So a lot of people chose to work from home to avoid commutes, especially not to be able to take public transports.
Right.
Though those who choose to come in were able to come in.
Yeah. And so, this way of working, how much was it practiced prior to going into the pandemic?
Actually quite widely, whether it was with team or, Skype, for example, it was very much a part of how work got done here.
Yeah. Now, just backing up, so you've had a fascinating career across the world in Hong Kong. You were in Amsterdam. That's actually where I remember catching up with you once. And you ended up in Copenhagen as well with Maersk. Sort of leaning on your HR brain, what do you see as coming from this period for the HR profession?
Certainly, the new way of working is certainly something that we have been talking about for some time, but now it's certainly a lot more prominent. I mean, we've all had to work virtually, and I think this is really accelerated. And I don't think we'll go back from that. I think what has been proven is work can be done wherever you are. You don't need to be in an office. So I think the implication for sort of the office setup, the need for offices, I think so commercial real estate will be big impacted by this. But also the nature of the office, what is the office about? So I think the days of the cubic farms that we have had are sort of going to go away. But then how do we enable and help employees who are going to be working from home or virtually from different locations to stay connected? Security will be a big issue, especially on video conferences like this and others. So I think that is a fundamental shift that I think is happening. And I think there's something else on this in terms of the sense of belonging. How do we now belong to a team and to an organization when we are not able to meet and be with each other physically as much and as often as we've been used to in the past? So I think from an HR function, from a culture perspective, how do we create the sense of belonging, the sense of connection, the sense of community, both virtually and physically now? So I think this will be a new thing that we'll have to focus on.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting last point you raised because Chapman CG, which I'm part of, has been virtual all along, and I think that we created community, interestingly, through the actual content of the work in terms of people working together on different tasks, feeling a common objective. But what I noticed was that it was really important that people were living in environments where they could also get that community as well. So they needed to lean on their family or friends or interests just that little bit more than if they were in a physical environment.
Yeah, indeed, and that's been one of the other big things is to see how communities of practice, for example, have been reaching out and collaborating. I mean, I've been part of a consortium being led by Unilever with other, heads of talents and leadership from, Goldman Sachs, from, at least 10 other different companies. And we have sort of just come together as a community of practice to share ideas and look at different solutions that we're taking. And I think that has been a fantastic new development that I hadn't seen before. So that has created sort of a cross company community of practitioners than just within the organization that I belong to. So that's a very interesting new development there.
Yeah, I think there's this. I mean, we saw this in serviced offices where people from different companies might be hanging out together. But one of the things when we force everyone into the same working environment is they hang together. Whereas if you get them out of there, people start to separate and they start to find what it is they want to find. They find their tribe.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. I mean, and the other big thing, Matt, that I think is important to note is the whole topic of self-management and self-care, resiliency. I am glad that we have been invested in this area in terms of mindfulness practices, energy management, especially now in these times of uncertainty. That has come in very, very handy. How do we maintain focus? How do we maintain clarity during these times of whether it's VUCA accelerated or is chaotic environment? And especially sort of, how do I, manage my own emotional states, my own insecurity, and be conscious of that, for my team. And I think this is very, very interesting also for leaders around the world in terms of understanding management of their own emotional state and then the impact that can have on others and helping others manage their own inner state, especially when fear is such a prevalent and strong emotion at work.
Yeah, Stephanie Nash, who is the Chief People Officer of the Chapman CG, she said a great thing to me once. She said, three aspects of this: start with yourself, start with then your team, and then your organization. And it sort of brought back to how are you, and are you in the best state to influence others? So in terms of HR's responsibility for this topic, because I guess we enter a very interesting era now where the boundaries of work and personal life are a lot more blurred. But where does the responsibility for HR start and end?
I think certainly HR has proven itself in terms of the importance in be able to respond both on the immediate short-term level in creating, first of all, safety in terms of really being able to enable work to continue, in supporting the leaders in terms of how they stay focused, how they manage. And also very importantly, besides just the short-term crisis management, to also look ahead and see, okay, how are we going to come out of this stronger in terms of, what are some things from the longer term in terms of when we emerge from this that we also need to keep in mind, in terms of building the business, supporting the leaders in terms of thinking beyond the people agenda and the safety agenda. What are the new markets? What are the M&A opportunities? What are the other investments that could be made now in order to come out of this stronger? So I think there's two elements that HR has really been, I think, really good at, is sort of managing the immediate, but also helping to keep the mindset that we also have to think about the longer term and how we come out of this stronger and better, more agile as an organization. So I think the whole agile way of working, technologically enabled way of working, is where HR, I think, has really stepped in. But I do think there's more work to be done, especially in the first points we talked about, and also looking at the sense of how do we build, maintain our sense of community and belonging. I think that is where some more attention is needed going forward.
Yeah, we've sort of just crested the hill now, haven't we? And I think, we've been running through crisis, but now there is really the chance to regenerate and be able to, throw that power at the possibilities of the future.
Yeah, indeed, and that's the important thing, right? I mean, the other key thing is also the sense of purpose, and I think this has become so much more important to sort of really keep that focus very clear, because there's so much noise and distraction at the moment. You know, what are we about? What are we here? And also helping to show care. I think the organizations that I've seen in the HR leaders have been able to support their CEOs and their leadership team with how do we show more care? How do we show more compassion, empathy towards not just our employee, but also our overall community in which we operate in? So I think HR have really stepped up in a major way in this crisis.
Well, to be continued. Thanks very much, Ricardo. Enjoy your day ahead in Stockholm.
Thank you very much, Matt, for the opportunity to reconnect and to share some perspectives.
Always a pleasure.